Welcome to Safe Skies with Lia Tuso, the ultimate podcast about flying with kids. I'm your host, Lia, a child passenger safety technician, frequent flyer mom, and passionate advocate for making travel safer and less stressful for families. Whether you're flying with a newborn, navigating TSA with toddlers, or wondering how the heck to fly with a car seat, this is a place to learn expert tips, professional recommendations, and gain the confidence you need to travel with your little ones. The seatbelt sign is on, so buckle up and join me for takeoff while we explore more about flying with child passengers.
Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of Safe Skies with Lia Tuso. Today, we're going to be discussing a burning question that so many people want the answer to, and that is why are in-lap infants allowed if we know that it is not safe for our children? And there is an answer that I'm going to be reviewing. We're going to go over the FAA's cost-benefit analysis. But before I get into the meat of the conversation, I do want to very clearly state what the FAA's position on in-lap infants is. The FAA does not consider an in-lap infant to be safe should rapid deceleration or severe turbulence occur. They have said in the past many times that there is a definite inherent hazard in air travel to child passengers who are not properly restrained. And right on their website, if you go on their website, faa.gov/flyingwithchildren, you will see right in print that they strongly discourage in-lap infants. So that is their position. They do not think that in-lap infants are a safe option. They discourage in-lap infants. They want caregivers to bring a child restraint system or car seat on board the aircraft. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about the cost-benefit analysis that they've performed. The cost-benefit analysis is a study that they performed in the late 90s that concluded, yes, lap infants are not safe, but the alternative is less safe. So they did this study that basically said, if we force caregivers to purchase a ticket for their lap infant, they're more likely to drive, which has a higher risk for injury and death, not just to the infant, but to the entire family. And we know that vehicles are irrefutably less safe than air travel. So that makes sense, right? But what they talk about and what they reference is called the diversion theory. And the diversion theory, I really call BS on it because it just doesn't apply in most situations. And in today's world, I think it applies less than it did in the 90s. So essentially what the diversion theory states is that, for example, if I have a caregiver that's going from New York to Philadelphia and they are forced to purchase a ticket for their under 2, maybe they'll say, you know what, I'm not going to pay the extra $200. I'm just going to drive. And, it's a 2.5 hour drive, not the end of the world. They save a little bit of money and they get to Philadelphia. As you increase the distance, the diversion theory becomes less and less applicable. So now I have a family from New York who needs to go to San Diego. And family reunion down in San Diego, and they're thinking, it's $200 or, even nowadays, $300 to get a ticket for my infant. I'm just going to drive. Like the chances of that happening are not very likely because who wants to drive from New York City to San Diego? It's not as strong of an argument. And then where it doesn't even apply at all is the situation where, family from New York has to go to Hawaii for, let's say, a destination wedding. You physically cannot drive to Hawaii. So you need to get that ticket. That's the only way you're going to get to Hawaii. So the diversion theory just isn't applicable in that situation. I believe the culture of today's world and travel, today's travel culture, I think that a lot of people prefer to fly over driving longer distances. Again, like if you're choosing between driving, New York to Philadelphia, well, it makes sense to drive. Those 3, 4, 5, even 6 hour drives, it's not a big deal. But when you're talking about driving for 2 days, it's not likely that you're going to take that option. And I just don't think that it's reflective of today's travel culture either. And so that's the diversion theory. The FAA submitted this cost-benefit analysis. The Department of Transportation Safety Board, the Department of Transportation. That's not who I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB. They didn't really agree with this cost-benefit analysis. They said, you know what? We don't really agree with this. We believe that every child passenger should be given the same level of protection on an airplane to that of an adult. We know that children need to be properly restrained in order to mitigate the risks for injury or death. We have, other parents that are, properly restrained. Adults are properly restrained. The coffee pot is properly restrained. Your luggage down in the cargo is properly restrained. Your overhead bin luggage, why aren't infants the most precious thing? Why aren't infants protected equally to that of an adult? And so that's where the NTSB kind of left it off. I would be very curious to see what the future of in-lap infants looks like. I do believe, again, we'll go back to the culture. I think the culture of parenting has changed greatly since the 1990s. There is a huge increase in child passenger safety awareness, and parents and new parents especially are taking it more seriously. And so I think that as time goes on, more and more parents will opt to bring the child's car seat on board, not just because it's the safest way for the child to fly, but it's also the safest way to transport your car seat. So it's a win-win in that situation. And I just feel like with more awareness, caregivers are going to start opting to pay for that extra ticket versus holding their infant in their lap. One of the conclusions from the DOT, the FAA, and the NTSB is that, all right, we know that it's not safe. What are we going to do to help caregivers? We are going to go out there and give them this information. We are going to encourage child restraint system use. The FAA does this very clearly on their website. The AAP is out there. They have it on their website too. But there really hasn't been many strong campaigns, I'll say. The FAA tries and does their part, but up until, I'll say, this last year or so, there really wasn't a strong awareness about the dangers of in-lap infants and the reality of in-lap infants. In my free ebook, I go over this cost-benefit analysis in a little bit more detail, more organized. Feel free to go to my website and check that free guide out. It's everything you need to know about flying with child passengers, much more than just the cost-benefit analysis. But there you go. So I hope we've answered the question, why are in-lap infants allowed if we know they're not safe? We definitely know they're not safe, and they are allowed because the alternative is considered to be less safe. So there's your answer. Stay tuned for the next episode. I'm going to be discussing why we shouldn't be baby wearing on an airplane, the safety of bassinets, what the heck are belly belt loops, and what inflatable beds really mean for your child on an airplane. So if you're interested in learning more about those things, stay tuned. That will be episode 4.